What's good with the YouTube? Convicts Perspective with your boy Flacco.
Hey, and it's your homie Rojo.
So this is the first part of our question and answer for you fans out there. So I'm going to start with the first question. It's from Ray J. Robb. Okay, here it is. Flacco expressed in an interview that the NF should have let Brown Bob retire instead of taking him out. My question is, can an NF member who has devoted his entire life like Brown Bob retire in good standings? Is there such thing as retiring from the NF because you're getting old, or is it really for life?
Well, as far as that goes, man, to be totally honest with you guys, it is in our Constitution, and it's supposed to be something that we can do. However, to be totally honest with you, I have never seen it like really happen. There's always been, an issue that led to that person's being deemed, or in Brown Bob's case, the worst case scenario. But, we're supposed to do it. Nobody ever really does it because most of the people that are around that long are lifers and they stay with the program 100%, or, they defect on their own terms, hit the miss and Y yards, whatever, go to witness protection. But, the people that have made it, the required amount of years and the required amount of service and, are in good standings and have attempted to go away, only bad things have fell upon them, and that's just from my experience. I'm like almost 30 years deep in this, and I've never seen it, nor have I heard of it. I mean, is it possible that it has happened once or twice? Man, totally. I don't know everything. You know what I mean? There's a lot of things I don't know, which is, reality. That's be the same with any NF member you ask. There's things certain people don't know, but I would say it's not really possible, man. Could it happen in the future? Of course. Will it? Yeah, probably. But in my experience, I'd have to say no with that one, man. Thank you for the question. All right, the next question is from East Bay, NorCal. It says, how do you guys feel about the green light mandate that was filtered to the streets to hit anybody from the federal faction paroling back home?
See, in me hearing this alleged filter directive, right? I've kept my ears to the streets a little bit, and as far as this, to me it makes no sense. I don't really anticipate the state faction implementing the green light on anybody prone to the feds, because there's a lot of Northerners and Norteños that hit the system that have no part in this, and through history that's taught us through the situations like the deep facility dilemmas and Operation Black Widow, and what we try to advocate out there is NF biz is NF biz. No Northerners or Norteños should be affected by it or involve themselves in it. So that's my whole theory is this order really being put out there? And so what I think is going on is anybody that they suspect that is coming out from the feds, that is pushing a federal agenda to work within the regiment, that's where I would anticipate the green light would come about. But my whole perspective of it is we just did that video on death row, right? On how those members weren't being looked after. And this is the whole type of agenda I think the federal guys have, is they want to continue to make that money. They want to continue to be financially stable and have that income coming in. And they don't want to be left to their own devices to where the state's not taking care of them. So I see what they're doing. I see what the state's trying to do is they're trying to assert themselves and control over California. So my whole opinion of it is, if that's the case, if there really is a filter that's coming out there that anybody coming out from the feds is going to be green lighted, that's a really cold-hearted move, and I have a hard time believing it. So my opinion would be this: any NF member that's prone to the streets from the feds, there probably is a green light, because currently there's an internal conflict. There's basically a war going on between these two factions. I've heard different rumors that recently there's been a couple killings that's happened out there in the streets. I can't confirm this, so I'm not going to go into the details, but I do keep my ears to the streets. So that's my opinion on that. So I have to do this, man. I have to ask Rojo this question, man.
Who's the asking person?
408 spreading jealousy. What happened with you and DB?
That's funny, man. Nothing weird like we joke about and stuff, man, with me in particular. However, I came to San Quentin in the East Block back in, I want to say, probably 1999. And DB is a higher rank than me inside a prison. However, on the outside, we held equal rank. You know, I know it's kind of confusing, but that's just the way it is. There's a chain of command for behind the walls and then one on the streets as well. Well, this individual, he started asking me questions that by rule and by direct order from the general of prisons, I wasn't allowed to answer. And I informed, basically he got at me asking me questions about my regiment, and the way I was brought up and taught by my OGs is that we don't discuss that with anybody without their clearance. A lot of people don't adhere to that, and they might have different directives. However, you know, when I was active, man, I followed the rules to the letter of the law. I didn't play around. I didn't bend rules, nothing, you know. I was a cool dude, real easy to get along with, friendly, you know, not power hungry, none of that kind of stuff. But I did obey my directives, you know. But he got to asking me a bunch of stuff, and I said, hey, you know, I know who you are, brother, and with all due respect, I can't give you that information. And basically he threw like a little tantrum and tried to tell me a little something about myself and how, you know, us younger generation familianos were not trained right, and I didn't respect history and all kinds of stuff. I'm like, well, you know, all you got to do, man, is go ahead and get at the bay. And my channel is this one individual they call Tibbs. And you know, you get at him and he tells me, you know, through our channels that I can provide you with this information. I'll be more than happy to, man. It's nothing personal, but I'm not gonna get myself in trouble with the very top of the O organization. That's what O means. I'm not gonna get myself in trouble because you're asking me things that I'm just unfortunately not allowed to tell you. And oh man, he threw a fit, and he tried to get me to hit somebody on the yard, like to punish me, you know, like just all kinds of crazy stuff, man. And I actually had to you know, get at my superior and let him know that this was presenting a problem. And during that time, he had got moved from East Block to the adjustment center. And so it wasn't really that much of an issue because I didn't have to look at him and hear him all the time, but he was sending, you know, kites back from the adjustment center through the legal law library in the East Block, still crying and complaining. And then finally, you know, a couple of weeks went by, enough time to get the mail, and then I didn't hear nothing else from him because, you know, he got sternly redirected by, you know, the bosses. But, you know, I've heard a lot of weird stuff about DB, man, you know, and we kind of crack jokes about it. And mainly, you know, it's because of the supposed child pornography case. I've never seen paperwork on that, but it's common knowledge. You know, if 50 people say it, you know what I mean? You see a dog bark, you assume it's a dog, you know. You know, I also had somebody next to my cell, a couple cells down. His name was Bad News. He was Bloodline. That's a faction of the Blood Gang. And he had told me one time that every time Dancing Bear walked by the shower, he'd try to stop and make conversation with him and kind of spend a lot of time looking at his genitals. And, you know, I paid it no mind. I figured, you know, old boy was talking smack, you know what I mean? But as time went on and all this, man, everybody says the same thing, you know, it's like, and this is a really respected high-ranking member at the time. You don't just go saying things like that lightly because, man, that'll get you dusted, you know? So just, man, in retrospect, man, I look back, man, and the dude was just weird. I mean, I was young at the time, you know, and you know, I was still kind of intimidated by his stature. But, man, it's a weird dude, bro. And I'm surprised his career lasted as long as it did. And he's definitely got some issues with the way he approaches his sexual behavior, man. I don't know, man. The dude's weird. And that's just my spin on it from my experience. Like I said, I seen no paperwork on none of that stuff. I'm not going to put that on him. But the dude is weird. I mean, that's all there is to it. So I don't like him, you know what I mean? And I'll say, you know, straight up, I might be biased, but there's every indicating factor between myself, other homies, other races that say the dude's just, something's wrong with him. And that's the best I can do. All right. The next question is from Spooky RDLY, Spooky Redley, something, I don't know. What happens when members of motorcycle clubs go to prison? Do they stand with their own or fall in line with one of the sides?
This is a good question. So first and foremost, I don't have all the answers to it. I'm going to go off what I've heard from other woods behind the wall in the system. So if there's any viewers out there that may have a little bit more information, please provide in the comments. But from what I've always been told, whether someone's HA or Mongol or whatever type of MC club that they're part of, that when they come into the system, they usually either drop their patch, they leave their patch to the streets, and they don't represent it. Okay, and either they side as being a wood, or they end up becoming an other, whatever choice they make to decide. Now, I've also been told that there's always been conflict between the red and white and AB. I guess back in the 60s and 70s, there really wasn't no issues. But from my understanding, there was an incident that happened in Folsom Ad Seg back in the 80s between the red and white and the AB. Therefore, the AB will not let the HA represent their patch behind the wall. That's my understanding. If anybody has a little bit more information about this, please elaborate in the comments, but I actually read about this. So that's my understanding, you know. And the AB, I heard there was issues with the red and white saying, well, we're not white, we're red and white. You know what I'm saying? And the AB's whole agenda, right, behind the walls, we're going to go into that in a whole different segment. The AB's whole agenda is to have all whites functioning under their umbrella. Therefore, the red and white, if they try to push their agenda behind the wall, it creates a conflict. So the AB's basically shut them down. So anybody comes in, when they come in there, they come in and they either ride with the woods and just do their time, or they go other or whatnot. That's my understanding of how these MC associates or members operate within the prison system. If anybody has any additional information, you know, please correct me if I'm wrong. This is just what I've been told by a lot of different white factions. Here goes the next question. Moses Cervantes. How does the Mexican mafia view the generals and the captains? I've heard through other channels that Corny is a cold-blooded killer and well respected. Are they feared by some Mexican mafia members, or are they big targets for the mafia?
Well, to be honest, yes, Corny is a cold-blooded killer. He ain't nobody to play around with, and there's many just like him. However, that extends to both sides. As far as any MA members fearing them, you got to remember, man, MA members, they're not playing. You know, they don't have no fear. They're gangsters, just like, you know, just like any NF member, just like any real AB member, etc. Man, we got people that'll take you out. They got people that'll take you out. I would say not there. There's no fear. You know, there's respect. There's going to be a mutual respect, because to join one of these groups, man, they're not letting too many cowards in. You know, there might be one or two that sneak through that, you know, misrepresent their qualifications or whatnot, you know, to gain, you know, membership into either group. But there's not going to be any Mexican mafia members sitting anywhere scared of Corny or Skip or any of the other butchers that we have, and vice versa. You know, I mean, I'm not going to go anywhere on no level 4 yard and be like, oh, that's such and such, I better not, you know, look at him wrong. It's just not how it is, man. Everybody, when their number's called, the majority of people, when their number's called from these two groups, are going to handle their business. As far as being a high-ranking target, I mean, if they understand, you know, the same kind of strategies and tactics, of course. I mean, that would be a high-ranking target, yes. I mean, that could go for any one of our upper-level people, you know, or any one of us in general is going to be considered a prize. You know, in either group, there's not really a whole lot of people. You know, I mean, there might be a couple hundred in each at any given time, maybe a little bit more, but not much. So, you know, if we're all on the main line, they're not just going to pick off a regular norteño or, you know, even somebody who's been around a long time. They're going to do their research. They're going to watch how the yard interacts, where people talk. I mean, you can read a yard like you can read a book if you know the words. So, you know, say for example, we use Corny as an example. If he's out on the yard, if they have some good soldiers on their side, you know, and some good leadership, they'll be able to figure out that he's a very important person, you know, and they study. All we do all day is study each other. You know what I mean? Like even right now, how there's all the peace going on. I promise you that each side knows their targets at any given time if anything went wrong. But as far as anybody fearing anybody, no. I mean, that's just not how either side views the situation at any time, you know. But yeah, I would say that, you know, under certain circumstances, that yeah, he would be a high target, because man, them guys aren't stupid either, man. Them guys are killers. They're gangsters. They're with the business, just like our former organization is, you know. So, you know, that's about the best I can answer that.
So I got a story to tell about Corny, right? So there was an individual back in Tracy named Kiki. He was a homosexual. And at that time, the NF tried to kill this individual several different times. Every time they almost had a chance to get him, you know, he would run to the cops and cause a big old scene. It was a little bit different environment. So what the NF did at that time was they put out that anybody who could kill this individual Kiki would become an NF member. So what Corny ended up doing is he obligated himself. He wasn't a brother yet. He said, I want to do it. So what Corny ended up doing was he played this homosexual out of pocket, acted like he wanted to hook up with him. So this happened in DVI and C-Wing. And so what they ended up doing is they ended up going into the room, the individual Kiki's room. They ended up closing the window, closing all the stuff, right? And as the dude gets relaxed and thinking he's going to give Corny some oral, Corny stabs him to death and then sticks his body under the bed. And at that time, that's how Corny first was put on probation to become an NF member.
I actually read the paperwork for that murder when I was in the pod with Corny.
Yeah, so Corny took a deal on that. And a lot of people said that he should have fought it. But it was something, I guess, what people have told me is that Corny liked the recognition as far as what came with that killing. It was his. It's something that he stood by. So Corny has multiple murders behind the wall. That's one of the most treacherous NF members there was. You know, he's a straight killer, straight savage. You know, but that's actually how he became an NF member at the youngest age of 20 years old within the organization.
All right. Next question's from Mighty Mouse 209. Says, Merry Christmas, Rojo and Flacco. So, hey, quick question. Was Sir Dino an NF member or an associate?
As far as Sir Dino, first and foremost, he was never ever an NF member. I guess you can technically classify him as an NF associate at the time because he helped produce that GUN CD under Juanito Bratton. But as far as his direct involvement, it was in a limited role. He was just pressing CDs and pushing out that GUN CD to make money for the organization, because basically he was out there representing the gente. They felt that this was a way for us to get involved out there in the streets and advocate and promote a message of a united front out there in the streets. Now, as far as Dino, he ended up getting indicted, you know, 2001 under the Operation Black Widow. He basically got caught up. You know, I mean, he had little business transactions, whatever he was doing, but as far as his role, as far as within the organization, he really didn't have any type of role except for producing those CDs. Now, at the time when Black Widow happened, he ended up getting federal bail. And I remember this because us in the Sanjo Regiment at that time, we were told to get in contact with him and find out what the situation of his status was at that time, because it's very rare that you get bail under a federal indictment. So there was a lot of red flags. So one of the brothers for our crew ended up locating him and met him outside, somewhere out there in the valley, and the homeboy Prieto, Black Steve from 12th Street from Sanjo, basically finally located him because we were looking for wherever he was at, and got in contact with him, and they met up and they checked to make sure each other didn't have a wire. They were in a bathroom somewhere in a restaurant, and they were checking. And at that point, Sir Dino was basically put in contact with us in the Sanjo Regiment. We had his number. But through all the course of actions that were going on, he just basically took a step back. I will say this, during the indictment, he never told, he never debriefed, he never did nothing like that. The brother's now a Christian, and I wish him the best of luck in his future. But as far as him being an NF member or even a associate, I mean, he basically played a limited role, you know what I mean, as far as any type of organized activities. It was just the production of the GUN CD.
Yeah, he basically just got caught up by helping out with that and helping out who the feds would dictate are the wrong people. But no, he was never with no organized movement or nothing, man. He just tried to help out and it backfired. But like Flacco said, he held his mud and he's doing the Christian thing now, and nobody has anything bad to say about him.
All right, here goes our next question from Faustino Ramirez. Will you, Rojo and Flacco, will you ever have Boxer on this channel for an interview?
You know, it's hard to say at this point. You know, we've been talked about it. You know, me, Boxer, Flacco, Boxer. And Boxer's got a lot going on, man. He's doing his own shows. He's doing podcasts. And, you know, and then whatever else he's got going on in his personal life. So, you know, only the future will answer that. We've talked about it, and, you know, we've said we'll probably do something. But ultimately, man, you know, it would be awesome, yeah, because, you know, we've heard 30, 40, man, maybe even more requests for the three of us to get on and do something together. But there's no telling what'll happen in the future, man. I'm all for it. Flacco, I don't know how Flacco feels.
Yeah, well, as far as with Boxer, I wouldn't mind doing something with Boxer, man. Like, he got a good thing going with him on his page. He has a little bit different way of going about his videos, which are excellent, very detailed information. He does a lot of research and he puts a lot of effort into it. You know, he has a lot of access to information that maybe we do not have. That's the big homie, though. You know what I'm saying? Both me and Rojo either functioned under him on the streets or functioned under in a prison facility. Rojo actually got pulled as an NR member back in the 90s by Boxer. So they have a long, extended history. You know, I worked with Boxer twice on the streets under his regiment. So I wouldn't mind, you know, doing something with the big brother. I mean, he has a lot more information to shed light, because based upon his long standing within the organization and being elevated to a Cat 3, and there's certain information that he was privileged to that some of us may not be privileged to. But our channel is a little bit different. You know, this is a perspective. A lot of it, we're spitting facts, but a lot of it, we're also spitting ideas, you know, speculation or what we think with common sense, or what's logically happened in some situations. But for the most part, you know, it would be kind of an interesting, entertaining type of podcast if we can do something together.
Yeah, yeah, we're looking forward to it possibly happening too, man. But, you know, only the future will tell. So, you know, you guys, you know, stay tuned, and it may happen sooner than you know.
All right, this is my next question. Rojo has a little bit more insight than I do. From Alex True. There's that NF member Epi that was on National Geographic Pelican Bay episode. Any of you guys knew that dude or did time with him? He also did an interview with a BGF member. Was everything he said accurate?
Well, as far as Epi goes, man, he was able to make it into the ranks of the NF. However, his tenure was very, very, very small. From what I gather, it was 2 weeks before he just decided to get in touch with the IGI, which is the Institutional Gang Investigator, and debrief and go to the transitional housing and start all that process. The process to get out of the SHU back in my days in the 90s was a lot more complex than it is now. You used to have to go tell, and then you'd have to go to a little housing unit where you'd have to cell up with the enemy for like 6 months. And it was a slow process, and you automatically got kicked out to a level 4. You know, a lot of people in the SHU have 0 points because they've been in the SHU so long, and it's really hard to get into trouble in there. So, like me, if I went back to prison right now, the only points I would have would be for whatever my case was, because sitting in the SHU so long, you know, I had level 3. I think I made it to level 4 points, but I stayed on a level 3. But being in the SHU so long, I mean, I might have gotten a 115 for having like a fishing line or destruction of state property, just real things that they don't even need to write you up for, but you know they do, just because, man, that's what they do, you know. But so you used to have to go to a level 4 and all that stuff. It was a long process to get back to the main lines. Nowadays, like, you know, if I went back now, you know, I still got an indeterminate SHU, but they'd kick me right out to a main line, you know, within a couple weeks. But as far as Epi, man, he's I seen the interview. You know, I was in Pelican Bay when he was there, and while it wasn't necessarily lies that he was saying, he was putting quite a bit on a few things. You know, he wasn't running no San Jose, and he tried to present it like that, and then he said, you know, he changed it up to be like, oh, my celly was, and I don't believe that was true at the time either. But you know, all the things he was saying to them gang coordinators and them Alameda sheriff and whoever else was there, I mean, it was fairly accurate. He overstated his importance, you know, but you know, I don't know if he was doing that to lie or to assist himself in looking favorably in front of them gang people to let him out of that transitional housing unit he was in when he made that video, to try to get himself back to the main line real quick. But he was, you know, I'm not going to talk bad about him because I don't know him personally, but he pumped himself up to be a lot bigger of a factor than he was in real life, you know. And as far as the BGF dude that was in there, I know that BGF dude, and that BGF dude was with the business. He's very, I'm surprised he dropped out, to be honest with you, because he had a very solid reputation, and that dude wasn't messing around at all. But yeah, as far as Epi, man, he didn't say nothing really dishonest, man. He kind of misrepresented his qualifications, but you know, basically for the most part, all the things he was saying were pretty accurate.
All right, listeners, this is our first part of the question and answer by Flaco Underhole. Please hit the like and subscribe button. Yeah,
there'll probably be at least 2 or 3 more parts to this, so if your question didn't get answered, don't trip. We got you. Please hit that like and subscribe. Thank you.